My greetings. Today's mini grammar tutorial is about tenses, and in this tutorial we're going to show you how to use the past simple and the past perfect continuous in one complex sentence. Now the past perfect continuous is used to refer to actions that were in progress, like when you say I had been working. Before these actions had been working were interrupted by another action, event, or another time in the past. Like you say, I had been working when someone came to visit me. Okay, I had been watching TV when the electricity switched off. As easy as that. So now the past perfect continuous had been watching, had been working, had been studying, or whatever is interrupted by another action which is in the past tense. So now let me remind you of the structure. The past simple and the past perfect continuous. As you can see, the past simple always comes as verb 2. It is either regular or irregular, as you can see. Regular because it ends with the ed or d, and irregular because we change the whole verb from verb 1 into verb 2 or from base into verb 2. Sleep, slept, drive, drove. However, the past perfect continuous is always used as had been plus verb ing. Had been studying, sleeping, or driving. Now let's look at the complex sentences. Let me remind you of something very important, that we are dealing with complex sentences. And because we are dealing with complex sentences, there are always two verbs, two actions. Now the first one is action 1, which is the past perfect continuous, had been ing, and then action 2 is past simple. But let me remind you of something, and very important. When you create or you make complex sentences by using the past simple as one of the two verbs, the past simple, the verb 2, always comes as action 2. Now, action 1 is different. It depends. It could be past continuous, was, were, ing, past perfect, had, plus verb 3, or past perfect continuous had been verb ing. So again, action 2, which is verb 2, always comes as action 2. Action 1 is different, like I told you before. Now, we cannot create complex sentences without having link words or transitions. Now, in this case, as you can see, I'm using either after, because, or although, and they are all followed by action 1, and then action 2, and then action 2, as you can see. Now, action 1 is, this case, is the past perfect continuous, is the past perfect continuous. Okay, is the past perfect continuous. While the action 2 is always the past simple, is always the past simple, as you can see. Okay, so after, because, although are followed by action 1, past perfect continuous, then followed by action 2, past simple. However, before and when are followed by action 2, then action 1. So it should be past simple and then past perfect continuous, as you can see. But let me just extend this a little bit so it can fit, hopefully. Great. So far, so good. Now, let's look at the graphs. The graphs might help, but you have to understand the tenses itself. So like before here, followed always by action 2 and then action 1. Now, because it's followed by action 1 and then action 2. Okay, now let's go down. Consider the following examples. Ali had been working as a common accountant for 15 years. He became the chief accountant, as a promotion. So now, I'm using because. Going back. Because is followed by action 1, then action 2, then action 2, as you can see. Okay, so because Ali had been working, this is action 1. As a common accountant for 15 years, he, as a promotion, became the chief accountant. Okay, again, because, followed by action 1, then action 2, became. Now, you could use also before, but in this case, let me remind you, before here is used in initial position, at the beginning of the sentence. It's followed by action 2 and then action 1. And if it is used in middle position, so now action 1 comes first here, and then action 2, because followed is always followed by, before is always followed by action 2. So Ali had been working as a common accountant for 15 years before he became the chief accountant. Again, as you can see, I'm using before at the beginning, action 2, and then action 1. Now more examples. Samir had been working, let me just try to take this up a bit because I want the chart. Okay, good. Samir had been trying to rearrange all his old files for more than 3 hours. I, as action 2, paid Samir a visit to his office last Monday. When? Going back. When is followed by action 2, then action 1. So, going down. When I paid, action 2. When I paid Samir a visit to his office last Monday, action 1. He had been trying to rearrange all his old files for more than 3 hours. Look at the chart. Okay, now when followed by action 2 and then action 1, as easy as that. Now more examples. Okay, I want to show you one example within these. Okay, now let's just keep it until we get to there. I had been working for 6 hours on the computer when. Now you can always go back to the chart. When followed by action 2 preceded by action 1. Because followed by action 1 had been working, then action 2 decided. Before followed by action 2 and preceded by action 1 had been working. When followed by action 2 and then action 1 had been waiting. Because followed by action 1 had been driving, preceded by action 2 had to leave or had to have a break. When followed by action 2 then had been stowing action 1. Again, after, preceded by action 2 followed by action 1. When followed by action 2 then action 1. Now, the athlete was, that's action 2, because followed by action 1 had been running. Okay, now that's an easy one. Let's see. The careless driver had an accident because he had been driving too fast. That's action 1. Because home followed by action 1. Because again followed by action 1 had been playing, and then we have where. And here because also preceded by action 2 and then action 1. And these are the these were the examples. Now we're going down to the exercises. All that you have to do in these exercises again is that to decide which one is past perfect and which one is past simple. Okay, now let's try to do it together, but let me just make some space for the video camera. Okay, hopefully it will work out. Okay, I know it's a bit crowded, but at least. Okay. Now, let's start with the first one. They were so tired. Okay, again, because preceded by action 2, then action 1 had been working. The children were very hungry because, again, action 2 followed by action 1 had not been eating. No, because this is something interesting. Find is a verb that is non-continuous. So you cannot use this one. You cannot use this one. So instead of using the past perfect continuous, and this is a very important thing to consider, whenever you cannot use the past perfect continuous or the past perfect or the past continuous, always use the past simple. So I was happy because I found my keys. The secretary was so exhausted, very tired, because she had been working, followed by action 1. Okay, now, everything was so white because it had been snowing, action 1, during the night. The flight passengers were very tired or were mad actually because, now again, lose is a non-continuous verb. There's a tutorial in the future, there will be a tutorial on non-continuous verbs. So they were tired because the airline lost, use the past simple. Selma for several years, but I recognized her. Again, see is non-continuous verb, so you should say did not see. Omar passed all exams because he had been revising. That's a past perfect continuous, action 1. They finished a week before the wedding. Okay, this is past simple. Okay, and this is action 2. So this is action 1 had been making. Okay, our answer is had been making. Again, I went to see my friends in hospital. You don't say the hospital because you are a visitor, but but your friend is in the hospital. He's, sick. So he broke his leg. Again, you can't say breaking. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Everyone enjoyed the family celebration. Layla and her daughters, okay, had made the food, all the food themselves again. My uncle finally passed his driving test. He took the test 3 times already. You can't say he had been taking. And finally, I received a letter from Layla yesterday. Why? Let's say that because, or you could say that that's action 2. So this is action 1, had been promising. And that concludes our tutorial for today. Our next tutorial is going to discuss how to use the past perfect or the past perfect continuous in one, actually to differentiate between the two tenses.